Everyone. Why don't we start class with a word of prayer, if you'll bow with me. Our God and Father in heaven, we praise your holy name. We praise you for you are God and worthy of all praise. We thank you for the word that you've left for us. Bless us as we study it, as we talk about it tonight, as we mold our lives by it. Thank you for Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and their faithfulness and the confidence they have in you, had in you, and the confidence that we can have in you. Watch over all the members of the church here in Brownsburg and Christians throughout the world, and bless them as you see that we have need. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, the lessons are in the back. If you need to pick up a lesson, we're in Daniel chapter 3 tonight. Daniel chapter 3. Of course, we're going to cover the first 6 chapters of Daniel, and then we'll move to John the Baptist and Jesus in the first year of his ministry. And the first 6 chapters of Daniel are really familiar stories that we know about. Of course, this is one of the most familiar, right? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. I've just added some things that are kind of themes for what we've studied so far. Of course, number one, God's sovereignty over kingdoms, over kings, over kingdoms. We're going to see that ongoing. Faithfulness under pressure. Daniel resolved, didn't he? He resolved to not defile himself. Just like we resolve in the world today not to defile ourselves. Daniel's 3 friends resolved not to defile themselves, if you will, in the lesson tonight. And then, of course, Daniel does again with the next kingdom that comes. We talked about the apex or the center or the main point of the book itself is the coming kingdom of Jesus Christ, his eternal kingdom. In Daniel 2, verse 4, the last lesson we talked about, during those days of that empire of the legs and feet with iron and iron mixed with clay, during the days of those kings, God was going to set up a kingdom that would never be destroyed. During the time of what became the Roman Empire, he was going to set up that kingdom. Of course, in chapter 7, verse 13 and 14, that's kind of the apex. That's kind of the main theme of the book. As different writers use different styles, we talked about the chiasm. Things parallel, going to one center main point. And there are 3 chiasms in Daniel, but one main overall chiasm, and that is the center of it, right there. And that's when Jesus, the Son of Man, who Jesus claims to be, goes to the Ancient of Days, and he receives a kingdom in the clouds. Wisdom and revelation, of course, it's riddled with that here, much like the story of Joseph. And then prayer and dependence on God is also a huge theme of the book of Daniel that we'll cover some. So, lesson 17. Oh, yeah, okay. I forgot that when I make changes on here, it doesn't necessarily change the things that I gave to Jacob earlier. So we're going to have to get in sync. Anyway, drills. Name the first 12 books of the New Testament. Same that we did last time. So it goes from Matthew to Colossians, right? things you'd want your kids and grandkids to know. And of course, we want us to know those too, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, 1st, 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, right? Those 12 books are the first 12. And then this is another drill that you have that you can do with kids in the smaller classrooms. Review. So let's go through the review. Joseph. What claim did Jacob make to Ephraim and Manasseh? He saw these two boys 17 years after he'd moved there. He's getting sick and coming in. He makes a claim. Joseph takes the boys to him. What's the claim he makes? We talked a lot about Joseph being the Bakor, didn't we? We talked about him being the son that would get the double promise, right? He would get the double share, as the oldest son does. Well, Reuben doesn't get that, even though he's the first son from Leah. Joseph is the first son from Rachel, and he gets the double share. And how does he get a double share? Everybody know that already? I'm sorry? One for each son. So he's not going to get, one of the sons isn't going to get land. Ephraim and Manasseh both are going to get land in the land of Canaan that he's blessing these. And so he says, these two boys are no longer yours, they're mine. They're mine. They're going to get the inheritance as if it were you. And so Joseph gets double the inheritance. Other little things about that, these points are, these boys were half Egyptian. So God isn't prejudiced toward just children of Abraham. These kids are adopted in the same way we're adopted in. Faith in the fulfillment of this. When Jacob is giving these blessings and when he's doing this, we learn later he did this in faith, and we talked a little bit about that. So, and then the last thing, the upside down expectations. God always seems to pull a fast one, doesn't he? You think one son's coming out and the other son comes out. You think the oldest son's going to get it and the youngest son gets it. You think the rich and powerful are going to get it, and the servant and the weak's going to get it, right? You think the wise are going to get it? No, the common person is going to get it. The person who is willing to humble themselves, right? Not many wise. Yes or no? Did Jacob at his death give each of his sons the same blessing? Who didn't get a blessing? Did Reuben, Simeon, and Levi get a blessing? They got curses, but they got a blessing because they all received something too. Reuben got property in Canaan. Simeon, while he was dispersed within Judah, he got property. And of course, Levi would have, ended up getting a blessing of the priesthood. Not that he got it at that time. So, what promise of God did Joseph assure his brothers? Joseph is what, 120 or something when he dies? I don't even remember. How old was he? 110. 110 years old. What's he tell his brothers? It's right there. Just to make sure that you know how to say it. What did he tell them? Yeah. I know we've been here 80 years. Maybe you guys 60, 65 years. God's promises, he is going to do this. Take me back to the land that God's going to give us. Wow, that's faith, isn't it? I'm about to die, but God will visit you and bring you up out of this land. He believed it. And it happened. Name the Babylonian king who took captives from Judah. Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah, so Nebuchadnezzar just defeats the Egyptians, and then he goes to Judah. And after Josiah is killed by the Egyptian king, Nebuchadnezzar and his father, who's still alive, likely still alive, to take Judah. And Jehoiakim and his son, then later Jehoiachin, reigns 3 years. And there's a special thing about Jehoiachin, his son. Not 3 years, 3 months. 3 months before he surrenders to the Babylonian king, Jehoiachin. So he surrenders, and he ends up staying with the king long term. But after, initially he's kind of in prison, but then he ends up staying and eating at the king's table, so to speak. Jehoiachin. His other name is Coniah. What special thing? This is for potentially $1 million. Potentially. What special prophecy is made to Jehoiachin, or I'll say to Coniah, by Jeremiah? Okay. Well, it's not there, but he promises him, Jeremiah makes the prophecy that there will not be another child of the lineage of David after Coniah who's going to sit on the throne in Jerusalem. That's what Jeremiah thought. How many people from the lineage of David have ever sat on the throne of David in Jerusalem since Coniah, since Nebuchadnezzar, since this guy surrendered to Nebuchadnezzar? How many know? Do you know? 2, 3, 4, 5? Anybody know? What did Jeremiah say? None. There have been none. There will not be another. There will never be another person out of the lineage of Jehoiachin, Coniah, that will sit on the throne of David in Jerusalem, according to Jeremiah. Hadn't been yet. Why am I saying that? In reference to Daniel 7, 13 and 14. Because Jesus says he's the Son of Man, and he's saying, I went to God in the clouds, the Ancient of Days. I got a kingdom, everlasting dominion. I've got it. I'm fulfilling the prophecy of 2 Samuel 7, 11 through 16. Did you have your hand up there, Brett? Okay. Dan? Yeah. Anyway, the point being is that Jesus received a kingdom. According to Gabriel, it's the kingdom that he will be the one to sit on David's throne. He's sitting on David's throne. He's ruling on David's throne. But David's throne is not in Jerusalem. And it never, ever will be. And that is important, according to Jeremiah, according to Coniah. But it's prophesied, and Jesus said he has got the kingdom. And Gabriel said he's going to be born, and he's going to be the one who's going to sit on David's throne. So it's very simple. David's throne is not in Jerusalem. Now, hopefully we'll get to that and talk about it more, if not this week, sometime soon, because that's fundamental to all of our understanding. Jesus is ruling. He's ruling in heaven. He's not in Jerusalem, and he'll never be in Jerusalem. ruling on a throne in Jerusalem. And Jeremiah prophesied it, and it's happened to this point, and it's never going to change. Who wrote the New Testament book of Acts? Everybody remember? Luke, the Greek. Why did Nebuchadnezzar give orders to destroy all the wise men of Babylon? Say that again. Yeah, if you can't tell me what I'm thinking and then explain the dream to me, then you're just trying to wait me out and you're being dishonest, right? And that's true. They were just being dishonest. And so he wanted to kill them all. But Daniel found out about it because Daniel was one of those wise men, right? So the point of these verses here is it's just a little play on why did Nebuchadnezzar give orders to destroy all the wise men? I do believe it was Nebuchadnezzar's decision to do that. But the thing that we have to remember is Daniel says, next chapter, when Nebuchadnezzar gets humbled, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdoms of men and gives it to whoever he will and sets up over it the basest of men. Paul says, God made from one man every nation of mankind, and he determined their allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place. Job said, God makes nations great and destroys them. He enlarges nations and disperses them. Psalms 22, the kingdom is the Lord's and he's the governor among the nations. This idea here about, the Most High ruling over the kingdoms of men is repeated several times in the book of Daniel. Yes, Nebuchadnezzar made that decision, but it's God that rules over the kingdoms of men. If we could just see how much, God's amazing. He rules over the kingdoms of men with the kings, and yet he does it with individuals on a personal level. Each of us, as we talked about with Joseph, he personally was involved with Joseph. Do you know anyone today that he's personally involved with? Personally involved with? It's kind of a trick question. I know someone. He's personally involved with me. Okay? I'm not trying to say, oh, well, he's speaking to me and guiding no, I'm not, He's personally involved with all of us. He literally knows the hairs on our head, which is what's amazing. He rules over the kingdoms of men, and yet, if we choose to, each of us can have a personal relationship with God through his Son, Jesus Christ, and he can be there and be our strength. He can be our support. He can be our stay during time of suffering. He can be our encouragement. He's who we can have faith in. We can talk to him. All those things. Just like Joseph, just like Daniel, just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So it's amazing. In Nebuchadnezzar's dream, what happened to the statue when it was struck by the stone? Can somebody explain to me what the stone is? What's the stone? Daniel's talking about this stuff 400 years, maybe 200 years, whatever. A long time before Jesus comes around. A long time before the legs of iron and feet mixed with iron and clay. This kingdom is representative of this stone, and it hits the gold, silver, iron. It explodes. It explodes so much that what happens to what's left over? Yeah, the wind carries away like chaff, like light little pieces of straw that just blow off from the wind. Okay, Daniel chapter 3. Let's read that together. I'm reading from the ESV. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its breadth 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then King Nebuchadnezzar sent together the satraps, the prefects, and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, and the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then the satraps, the prefects, and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces gathered in the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And he stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had, and they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And the herald proclaimed aloud, "You are commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be cast into the burning, fiery furnace. Therefore, as soon as the peoples heard the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, all the peoples, nations, and languages fell down and worshiped the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and maliciously accused the Jews. They declared to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into the burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews who you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you've set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar, in furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. So they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to them, "Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? Now, if you are ready, when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, to fall down and worship the image that I have made, well and good. But if you do not worship, you shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with fury and the expression on his face was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times more than it was usually heated. And he ordered some of the mighty men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. These men were bound in their cloaks, their tunics, their hats, and their other garments, and they were thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Because the king's order was so urgent and the furnace overheated, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound into the fiery furnace, the burning fiery furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up in haste. He declared to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire?" They answered and said to the king, "True, O king." He answered and said, "But I see 4 men unbound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods." Then Nebuchadnezzar came near the door of the burning fiery furnace. He declared, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here." Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the furnace, from the fire, and the satraps, the prefects, the governors, and the king's counselors gathered together and saw that the fire had not had any power over the bodies of those men. The hair of their heads was not singed, their cloaks were not harmed, and no smell of fire had come upon them. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants, who trusted in him and set aside the king's command and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own God. Therefore I make a decree, any people, nation, or language that speaks anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb and their houses laid in ruin. For there is no other God who is able to rescue in this way. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. Okay. Anything stand out to anybody in the story? Something catch your ear that you hadn't remembered from before, or these were just additional scriptures that we can look at that may have reference. No one can serve two masters. He'll either hate the one and love the other, or he'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You can't serve God and money. The God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mankind life, breath, and everything. What's it say after this in Acts 17? Anybody remember? Paraphrasing. That same God determines man's life, where he lives, and the extent of time he lives there. God controls those things. Just like Jesus doesn't live in a temple here on earth and never will, God doesn't need that, nor does he need us to have to serve him. So, big image of gold, wasn't it? You know, they've discovered a large platform around the area of Babylon that could potentially have had a statue this large sitting on it. More current archaeological digs. What did Nebuchadnezzar build on the plain of Dura? What did he build? What did he do? Nebuchadnezzar. Why? Why did he do it? Why might he have done it? Why might he have built a huge idol and wanted everyone to worship that idol that he had built? Unify everybody in the country under his rule, right? Test of allegiance to anyone who would want to do something different than what he was promoting. Obviously, his pride, idolatry, defiance of divine authority are all reasons. They don't know for sure. It could even be the area, could have been within the city walls. So, but the point is he built something very close to the city or within the city walls that everybody could see. And it was pretty elaborate, wasn't it? It's funny when you read it, because I just wonder, like, why do you think the writer puts all those musical instruments that they're going to say, or all those people that are going to come? It was quite an event, wasn't it? Everybody was going to come, and they're going to play this, 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 and this. Why? What's God contrasting here between Nebuchadnezzar and his major event and this huge, 90-foot tall statue, probably covered with gold? Maybe all gold, I don't know, probably covered with gold. Yes. Yeah, she's saying that yeah, if God's not part of it, it's nothing. God doesn't have to boast, does he? He didn't have to brag. He didn't have to make a big deal out of it. He just does what he wants to do. He does what's best. Men, we put huge things on. We make elaborate spectacles. We try to trick and dictate what people are going to do to show their allegiance, but not God. All that big thing, and who's the God that's going to deliver you from his hand now, from my hand now, Nebuchadnezzar says. Question 2. The people assembled around Nebuchadnezzar's golden image were ordered to do what? At the sound of the music. Bow down and worship. Is there anybody that wants us to do anything like that today? Is there any parallel that you can think of in our society today? Or something you think might be similar to that? I'm not necessarily thinking of any one thing. I didn't know if any of you felt that way, That like if you were in a public place and at work and somebody said something about, someone's pronouns or someone's sexual orientation or was promoting something that you knew was not something God was pleased with, but yet society would be, very much in favor of. More than likely, if you're working for a large corporation, they would be very much in favor of it, Sometimes there's that pressure, isn't there? There's that pressure to, okay, bow down. Bow down. This is what we're supposed to do. Right? Yeah, we don't want to bow down. We want to be able to determine and set our minds not to bow down. What was the penalty for not bowing down? Lose your job? Flaming death. Flaming death. I mean, that's pretty serious. Nebuchadnezzar don't mess around, does he? After this, now if you say anything against God's people, I'm going to tear your houses down and cut you up into pieces. So, yeah, he was serious about it. Of course, this was quite something that they had built, wasn't it? 9 feet wide, covered in gold, 90 feet tall. It didn't just happen overnight. It wasn't just over the weekend. Oh, name the 3 Jews who did not bow down, and what did they say about God? So, what did they say to Nebuchadnezzar? What all did they say? I'm sorry? Yeah, our God, who we serve, he is able to deliver us. Popular phrase, right? That we sing. He will deliver us. He will deliver us. What did they say he was going to deliver them from? I just thought this was amazing. Yeah. Yeah. So they didn't just say, hey, we'd rather not. They said, he'll deliver me from you. This is you. You're the one doing this. And our God's who we serve is completely able to deliver us, and he will deliver us from you. But if not, yeah, yeah, what Dan says is true, because the very next thing says, but if not, but if he doesn't, if he chooses not to, if God chooses not to deliver me from that fire, I ain't worshiping your God. I'm not worshiping your idol. What happened to the men who threw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the fiery furnace? Yeah, flaming death. I mean, does anybody ever think about those guys? Have you ever thought about the guys that threw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in? You know, I mean, we see people all the time that the people who do evil, they drag a lot of other people with them. One statement that Deirdre and I talk about sometimes is, better than a millstone be hung around your neck and you're cast to the bottom of the sea than for you to hinder one of these innocent children from coming to me. Might be your child, might be your grandchild, might be someone, a child who's in a difficult situation that sees your hypocrisy. Sometimes we end up taking people with it, and we don't want to be that person. You know, we forget about these people who were just serving the king, right? But they went down, flaming death. Yeah. How many men did King Nebuchadnezzar see in the fiery furnace? 4. Well, who do you think the fourth one was? Okay. Can you guys read that? I don't know if you can see that. What's a, does anyone know what a Christophany is? Okay. Before Jesus Christ became Jesus the Christ, he was God and he was in existence, right? But his mom's name wasn't Mary. He didn't have a mom. But he existed. And so if he presented himself in some way, if he did, that would be a Christophany. So things like this one, the fourth man in the fiery furnace. Okay? God provides divine protection and presence for us when we're suffering, right? We learn about that in a lot of different ways. The angel at the burning bush. When the Lord came to speak to Abraham before he went to Sodom and made some promises to him. And Abram entertained these two angels before they went off to Sodom to decide what they were going to do to this evil, wicked place. The commander of the Lord's army, right? Joshua fell down and worshiped this person. Would an angel have received worship? So I guess my question is, do you think it was Christ? Was it an angel? Any opinions? I don't think we can prove, maybe, one way or the other. Any thoughts? another page there. So, what about this? When Stephen says in Acts 7, in his speech, he says, "You received the law from angels, and yet you didn't keep it." Was it God that gave him the law, or was it angels? Stephen says it's angels. Galatians 3, the law was put into effect by angels through a mediator. Hebrews 2, popular passage. We must pay closer attention to what we've heard, lest we drift away. For since the message declared by angels proved to be reliable, and every transgression of disobedience receive a just retribution, how shall we escape if we neglect such a great salvation? It was declared at first by the Lord, and it was attested to us by those who heard. What do you think? Was it an angel? Was it Christ? And well, if it's Christ, it's not an angel. If it's an angel, it's not Christ. Because Christ, the Logos, the Word, he's God. He's not an angel. So it doesn't necessarily matter one way or the other. My personal belief, it was angels. It wasn't a Christophany. It wasn't God in the form of an angel because of what some of the things I mentioned in Acts 7, Galatians 3, and Hebrews 2. Yeah, go ahead, Randy. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I don't have the answer for that. Obviously, we know they were polytheistic. We know that they believed in multiple gods. And so it makes sense that he spoke up about Daniel's God in chapter 2, but I don't think he thought of him as the only God or the ultimate, God. Of course, it's the most powerful man on the earth, right? This person right now. So, yeah, probably the writer put that in there for us, right, to know. So no thoughts on angels or Christophanies. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. After the fiery furnace incident, what did Nebuchadnezzar declare about the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Yeah, blessed be the God. Blessed be the God of them who sent his angel and delivered his servants, who trusted in him and set aside the king's command and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any God except their own God. Wow. That's all I got, guys. Anybody have any other closing comments? Yes, Scott. Yeah, good point. Yeah, I mean he knew he knew a miracle when he saw it, didn't he? Yeah, he knew real power when he saw it, and of course Daniel, the same person or the same God believer as these guys, had already proven himself to them. Uh, yeah, yeah. Don't even mess with these guys. God, don't do it. I don't want any trouble, and don't do it. Yeah, Scott's saying. Randy. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. Well, Sunday it's Daniel chapter 4, and Nebuchadnezzar has another dream. Not going to turn out well for him. So be ready for that, and we'll see what God has in store. Okay? Everybody have a good week.